Witchers! It is time again for the Witcher Lorecast, the show that brings you all of the information you need in order to become a Witcher in your own town. I don't recommend doing that, but if you wanted to, you can go to Poland and get the training to do that, because there's a school where you can learn how to do that, and we're going to go with you. So let us know when you're going. We're going to book our flights. We've already taken our COVID tests. We're clear to go. Just let us know. Me and Toasty are going with you. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with my wonderful, all-knowing, all-wise wizard of a knowledgeable man, Toasty, my co-host. What's up, Toasty?
You lost me.
I mean, you're the expert. You're the Witcher expert. You're like a wizard who's spent his life in a tower studying books about the Witchers.
So 8 books. I've studied 8 books in my entire wizard lifetime.
Yep. Over and over again. Yep.
All right. Well, all right then. I guess that's my legacy. I sound really impressive.
You're very impressive. Yeah, you just need to keep growing that beard out some more. Just keep growing it out real long. You got to get the long hair.
This is hard enough as is.
Keep it going. But welcome back, everybody. We're going to be doing this podcast, and by the end of it, his beard will be a little bit longer. This is the episode where we're going to be covering the second episode of season 2, and we've decided to change it up a little bit because Josie and I were talking. We're like, you know what? We've been doing these impression episodes and then the breakdown episodes for season 2, and we're like, there's 8 episodes. So that would be like 16 total episodes for each of the show episodes. To do 2 of each. That means that like by the time we get through it, we'd be like in, I don't know, May or something. You add on the Patreon episodes. That's a long time to be talking about season 2, because we're definitely going to want to get back into some of the lore episodes, talking about some of the other stuff that's going on. So we're going to do our best to smush everything together. In the first half of this episode, we're going to do a recap of season 2, episode 2. In the second half, we're going to go over our impressions, talk about the things that we liked, the things that we didn't like so much, and give you a kind of our thoughts on the episode, the same way that we would have done in 2 episodes. We're going to try and smush it together in 1 so that we can get through season 2 in order to get back to some more of the lore episodes, because that stuff's awesome as well. And, before long, I'm sure we're going to have some other show episodes to talk about. So got to keep the train on the tracks. Got to keep it moving. Got to keep that Witcher train choo-choo-chooing. Right, Toasty? My Witcher wizard friend. I'm just trying to make sure that this isn't like ruining, because you started like kind of freeze framing there for me, and I'm like, I really hope my internet's not doing anything funky. I think we're still good. Let us know if you're on the live stream. Oh, by the way, this is Monday night. We are streaming live, as we do every Monday night, on the Robots Radio YouTube channel, Twitch channel, Facebook's page, everywhere. You can come and check us out. And by the way, we've got some of our welcome live viewers. If we start messing up, because sometimes the internet gets weird, let us know and we'll fix it. But Toasty, why don't we kick this off? Why don't we start with our recap? This is episode 2. We're finally moving on with kind of the main. We're past kind of the short story section of the season, because that was just the 1 episode, right? And now we're into Blood of the Elves, right? Blood of Elves. Boom. This is the meat and potatoes. Dun dun.
Boom.
Here we go.
All right. So to make this easier, we're just going to go ahead and split the storylines, just so that we're not hopping back and forth. We'll start with the storyline of the sorceresses, Yennefer, Fringilla, and Francesca. We start, Yin's having a weird dream where she's living a happy farmer life with Geralt, and she's pregnant with a baby, which of course that's never going to happen. So weird.
So weird.
Yeah. It's Yennefer pregnant. Impossible. Can't do it. It's not possible.
Nope.
So
she's got no more baby making bits. They're gone.
She wakes up with her second fuck from waking up this season. Every time, I thought that was going to be a trend, just her waking up and saying fuck every time. I was like, is that her turn? Geralt doesn't say it anymore, but she does.
Yeah.
She's in the back of like a wagon with Fringilla. They are handcuffed together. they're peeking outside and they're like, oh man, we're surrounded by a bunch of elves. This is crazy.
And this is the pickup from the end of the last episode where they get ambushed and we don't know what happens. So this is the immediate pickup is like, oh, now they're in the back of a wagon. They're coming to. They look pretty messed up. Who captured them? Oh, it's the elves.
It's the elves. So they finally come to a stop. We see that one of the elves is Philivandrel. So
who we met in season 1.
Who we met in season 1 briefly. Yep. Or if you've watched Nightmare of the Wolf, he was in that too. So very, very popular elf here. So they get taken in front of Francesca, who's not dealing with Fringilla. She's like, you know what? Shut up. Go to sleep. I don't want to listen for you right now. And Yennefer tries to get kind of pity from being an elf as well. And Francesca's like, yeah, you may have the blood of an elf. Funny what I did there. But she's basically like, you don't actually celebrate any of our culture at all. You don't do our prayers. You don't do any of the stuff we do. You're not an elf. You're human. So dang, shots fired. So they're taken, they're kind of imprisoned for a while, and Yennefer realizes they're all kind of having this like same dream thing. Francesca mentioned having a dream about a white robed figure. Fringilla's dreaming about a black robed figure, and Yennefer is dreaming about a red robed figure,
which too similar to be coincidental.
Yeah, and Fringilla even states that shared dreams are powerful omens. So they basically try to get Philivandrel, or convince Philivandrel that he should, let him out of their chains so that they could talk to Francesca about, what this dream means.
Right. And at this point, to jump in, it's very clear that Philivandrel is no longer the dude in charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Francesca's taken over because Philivandrel failed to, I guess, hold up what the elves wanted him to do. And so they turned to Francesca. But he's still pretty high up there. Like he's like second in charge, really. So it's not like he fell completely to the bottom. Right.
Now, when we got to this episode, my expectation was, he's probably actually in charge here. Why does he seem to be so submissive in the situation? Like, what's the actual deal? And it comes to light later. It's explained more explicitly exactly what you said, in that nope, he's no longer the dude in charge. It's more complicated than that.
So, but they're at this ancient elven ruin, and basically Yennefer and Fringilla get summoned inside the ruin. We get to see kind of little, kind of like cave painting, essentially representations of the conjunction of the spheres. Mm-hmm. And then Francesca is asking them to tell her about their dreams, because Philivandrel went and told her, about it. So they go into this room. There's this inscription. I'm using the wrong word, on a pillar. They kind of uncover it, read it. It opens up this passageway into this dark, spooky forest, which is odd because normally there aren't forests under ruins. Yeah. But apparently there is here. Right. So they make their way in there. They're traveling around this forest. They come across this hut that has no door. And Francesca says the inscription to turn away from the forest, hut, turn your front to me, or turn your back to the forest, hut, turn your front to me, hut. And the hut stands and turns towards them. And they are, next thing we see from them, because it cuts away when it comes to back, they're inside the hut, and they're all having this same but also different vision thing going on. So it's obvious by the way that they did the kind of the effects of them. So they're kind of glitching in and out spiritually, and we see that it is the same, that they're all there present for everyone, but each person is seeing a different specific vision that they're seeing. So Francesca is seeing the vision of Ithilene, who is kind of their, I guess, I would say like Messiah of like the elves, and is being told about how she needs to ally with Nilfgaard if she expects the elven race to actually survive this, or else they're just going to die out. And we find out that she is pregnant with a pure elven child, but she's been pregnant before, and every time they never come to term. So she's worried, and this vision of Ithilene is telling her, this is what you need to do, and this child will be born. Fringilla is seeing a vision of Emir, full armored, even got a helmet on. Totally,
right.
Very interesting decision there, to not show us a face. But basically Emir's telling her, like, we need something else to add to our forces for this war in order to win it. What better than to have, like, these people who live here who aren't fond of the Northern Kingdoms and know the terrain,
right?
Basically telling her that they need to ally with the elves in order to win the war. So those visions are kind of telling each other the same thing. Yennefer's is a completely different thing going on right now. She's seeing a vision of what I would probably assume is a younger Tissaia.
Yeah,
I think she kind of looks like Tissaia.
Yeah. It's a child, and it's not 100% clear who or what it represents.
Yeah, but I think she looks kind of similar. They're usually pretty good at picking people who look similar to like other people. So like, because like Pavetta looked really, really a lot like Ciri. They kind of matched that up, and so I don't know. And this vision of this girl is telling Yennefer, like calling her Piglet and remember this lesson and stuff.
Right.
So it kind of adds into that. But basically we find out from that Yennefer, because of the intense fire magic that she used, the cost was the fact that she can't use chaos anymore at all. Her magic is gone. So we get to see her kind of repeating the lesson with the flower and the stone, trying to lift the stone. She can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So she's powerless. She's done. So they come out of those, strange visions with each person with kind of their revelation or goal that they need to accomplish. Fringilla, or Yennefer, awakes in the forest, sees Fringilla. Fringilla tells her about, the deal that her and Francesca made, that they're going to ally together in order to win this war. And Yennefer is kind of left by herself, no powers. She's running through the rain, trying to summon a portal, but she just can't because she has no magic. And it's kind of a really like sad, devastating end to the episode for her. So
right. Now, I think what's even more powerful about this situation is that I mean, powerful is probably the right word. You have 3 very powerful sorceresses, and Yen in this situation has lost her chaos, but they're all very capable. They're all very shrewd. They're and have been powerful, or currently very powerful when it comes to chaos and their abilities in these moments. And yet the thing that they're dealing with is like head and shoulders beyond them and their abilities. Like whatever this is in this moment, no spoilers yet, this thing is like beyond them. This is not something that they've dealt with before. This is not just like, some other sorcerer who's just messing with them. This is something that can mess with all 3 of them at the same time, and potentially even has the ability to remove Yen's ability to harness chaos. If this is the thing that's actually doing it to her in this situation, right? Like this is, whatever this is, it is bad news bears, or, like this is powerful. So like, I think that this scene does a lot to really show us the seriousness of the situation. Because if this was just like, three soldiers seeing this imagery, we could be like, okay, maybe it's some powerful sorcerer. Who knows, right? Maybe they have the ability to do this kind of thing. Who knows? But the fact that it's these three that are dealing with this, and they don't know what's going on, and they feel like in some ways they're going along with it, and they're kind of being fooled. Like, this is a big deal.
So then next we got the Geralt and Ciri and the rest of the Witchers part of the story. So Geralt and Ciri, they've been traveling and they finally make it to Kaer Morhen. We get the whole kind of scenic view of everything, of how it really looks and such. And they make their way inside. We get to see all of the Witchers, the pretty large amount of Witchers.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them. This is where another place where it diverges from the books. Whereas you would have normally had like 4. There's like a dozen.
Yeah. So basically, greetings. We get to see kind of the dynamic of what the Witchers look like, how they're kind of like brothers. They're greeting each other, hugging, happy to see each other. A bunch of them are kind of like, why the hell do you have a little girl with you? This is weird.
Right. Who's she? What are you doing?
Who is she? But it doesn't take long for them to kind of just let her join in with the stuff. We get story time with Lambert, where he's telling like a story about a job that he had. It's really silly tale when Eskel shows up and reveals that, or he has like the hand of a Leshy in kind of like this bundle, and everyone's really surprised because Leshies are really rare to come across. And, he talks about how he got injured by one, and he fought it for a really long time. He gets needled a bit because he seemed pretty incompetent. They were like, you could just fire through the heart, dude. But it took you 6 hours. You still didn't kill it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So he's getting needled a bit. And then we get to see talks between, Ciri and Geralt's kind of looking into this Leshy hand, talking about basically he wants her to kind of do what he says, but she's still rebellious teen / I don't know if I fully trust you yet. So,
right.
And she kind of wants to learn, she wants to train, and he's still kind of on that thought process of, no, I'm going to protect you. Like, you don't need to protect yourself. I'll protect you.
Right. Right.
So they're having a bit of a clash there. Then they go out. Eskel's invited a bunch of prostitutes into the keep, which is just weird, but okay.
Yeah.
And so everyone's having a good time with their prostitutes, getting it on or whatever. Eskel's in a foul mood, probably because of his injury. Geralt has a little bit of a confrontation with them, telling him like, we shouldn't, like, one, why the hell are they here? This isn't how we do things. They should not be here. And then Eskel's very grumpy. Geralt puts him in like a head hold and is like, go to sleep. Like you need to go to sleep.
Right.
And so he leaves, and we see him kind of go into the lab area or some kind of area, and really bad sex dialogue lines are exchanged here.
Right.
Yeah, really cringy ones. And we see this like weird branch coming out of the back of his shoulder where his Leshy wound is. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh no, that's not good.
Bad news. Sorry, buddy. And
then medallions go crazy, or Ciri and Vesemir talk to each other. And Vesemir kind of gives a little bit of a, it's kind of an exposition thing with what's related to the Yin, Fringilla, and Francesca when it comes to the Deathless Mother. Mm-hmm. And then also, we get that nod to Nightmare of the Wolf where he's talking about Deglin, the guy who trained him.
It's a cool scene, yeah, because they kind of connect. It's a connective tissue point, right? Where he's able to say like, "Hey, this is kind of how all of this stuff fits together a little bit," which it connects back to the last episode in a way too. The story that was told to her by Boar Guy. Whatever his name is. Nivellen. I'm so bad at names. But it kind of connects all these things together and also forwards the main plot line of the season in a way that kind of connects this stuff. So
yeah, which I think I said last episode was kind of like they're giving us exposition without making it just purely exposition, where they're still dealing with because he's telling her these things, but he's also talking to her about, kind of, how Geralt is and how she should kind of react with that situation.
Right. And showing her around the keep and being like, hey, check out this cool thing and look at this. And like,
we find out information without it being like,
right.
Driving into our skulls.
Right. And it would make sense too, because he's proud of what he's been able to hold together at this point. Like he's the guy who's held this place together. He is the keeper of their history, and the room they're in holds some of that history, some of the artifacts and the old items and things. So it would make sense for him, as part of him welcoming her into his place, to proudly share some of that history. That would it totally fits the character. Like this is one of the points. There are some moments where Vesemir, in my opinion, later on in the season, breaks from what I would expect from him as a character. But this is not one of them. This is one of the points where I felt like, oh no, this is cool. This is exactly what Vesemir would do. So I felt like this really fit.
So then all the medallions in the keep start like buzzing, like the medallion tree is like shaking because of all of them are going off, all of their own personal ones. So everyone knows something's going on. So all the Witchers kind of, hide away all of the civilians and then just kind of get to work. Some guarding the women and whatnot, other ones kind of going in. Geralt's first instinct is to guard Ciri, but Vesemir's like, look, you're the best of us. You need to like go and find
go do what you're good at. Go.
Yeah. And so he goes on and he ends up getting to the room that he was in, finds Eskel Leshy. Essentially, Eskel has now been turned into a Leshy for the most part. He's got tree limbs and he's like crawling from the ceiling with his like tree roots and things. So Geralt gets in a fight with him. It's kind of clear that Eskel's like pushing back a little bit, but for the most part, he's not able to control his need to, I guess, attack Geralt's. Vesemir shows up. They fight him together. They use a bunch of hooks to kind of hook him down because they're going to try to like cure him of this. But he's able to get some like tree roots around Vesemir's throat and is choking the life out of him. And Geralt has to make the decision whether he lets Vesemir die or he kills Eskel here. And he decides to kill Eskel. Which we'll talk about that in the second half. I think definitely something to touch on. So, of course, it's a really hard decision for him to make. You get to see him contemplating that. I can definitely understand whether killing your brother or letting your father die. Definitely a tough decision to be made because it's essentially what he's doing. And basically, Geralt, because of this situation, figures out that he can't just protect Ciri. He has to teach her to protect herself. So the thing that she wanted to do he's finally kind of come to realize that. And we end off the episode with this really cool scene where he's starting to kind of walk her through sword maneuvers, and they're doing it together. And another powerful scene. Another
episode ending with a really strong father-daughter kind of moment. You know, the last one ended with them kind of having this heart-to-heart conversation, and this one ending with them coming back together after a tragic situation, and him going, you know, like getting through the disappointment of having to, you know, put down his brother, you know, his found family kind of brother, and taking her and saying, okay, let's do it. And then right then starting with the training, because that's what he needs to do. And that's one of the cool things about Geralt, is that he just goes on and does what he needs to do, even when he's heartbroken. And it's one of the cool things about his character. But yeah, so that's the recap. Now you might feel like, hey, you guys kind of normally talk a little bit more through the recap, but that's what the second half of the episode's for, because we're going to go back through and share some of our thoughts about the episode and dig a little bit further into the discussion portion. So we're going to be talking about some of our specifics. We're going to dig into a little bit more of the details and some of the things we liked and didn't like so much about this episode. So stay tuned for that. But right now we have to take a moment to thank our patrons. So we'll be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, so here we are in the middle of the show, and we have a brand new patron to welcome to, we should call it Kaer Morhen, a new Witcher to welcome to Kaer Morhen.
Kaer Morhen.
So, fair enough. So, I mean, they're all monsters on our Patreon. We have another monster to welcome to the Wild Hunt. All right.
Not bad.
Okay. So, welcome, Scylla, to the Patreon. You are our newest patron, and thank you for signing up. And that means that you are number 11. We have 11 patrons now. So thank you to everybody. And man, this is exciting, guys. If we've done anything to help you get through work days, your workouts, your commutes, you're kicking people out of your home because they've stayed way too long, because haven't they realized this is already the second week of January and they need to go home? It's no longer holidays. Get out of the house. And while you're doing that, listen to our podcast. But then go to patreon.com/WitcherLorecast, where you can check out all the different tiers and ways that you can help support the show, because it helps Toasty and I keep doing the show, because this is a side thing for Toasty. Toasty works his regular job, but this also helps pay the bills for him. And this is part of what I do for a living. I do this show and many other shows, and also run the network. So because of you guys, we are able to make this a priority. So thank you so much for all of our patrons and everybody who listens. Also, check this out. We've got, 2 new reviews. Yes, 2 new, I believe. We have one from Bitsy K in the US, who wrote in and said, and this is on Apple Podcasts, by the way, who wrote, "Great podcast, 5 stars. Just started listening yesterday and really love, number 1, the background lore, and number 2, the reviewing of the episodes. I just watched season 1 for the second time around and saw so much I'd missed the first round. I'm rewatching season 2, and this podcast adds so much to the experience. Thanks, guys." Well, you're welcome, Bitsy K. That's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave that review and give us 5 stars. And that's just awesome that when people can get so much more out of it, because we were able to, give them some more info, and enjoying more with this stuff is always, I don't know. That just makes me feel good, Like, oh, yes. More lore, more enjoyment. I love when I watch something like multiple times and I feel like I get more out of it the next time. That's so cool. Then we have one from Sweetwater2219 in the US, who, this one's quick and easy, wrote, "Love it. 5 stars. Just started, so I'm catching up on all the older stuff. I love the context and the discussions. You guys rock. Burn, Butcher, burn." So thank you, Sweetwater. And just a reminder, if anybody wants to take the time to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, then we will... Tozy, you're raising your hand? Or are you just saying...
I see another one. I see a third one.
Did we not read that one yet?
I see a third one. Nano325.
What? Where is this one?
I can read it. I can see it.
It must not show up on the one I used in order to see this. Go ahead and read that one out.
Okay. Yeah, I can read it. Yeah. So we got one from Nano325. Absolutely fantastic. 5 stars. Fantastic is all capitalized, by the way.
Wow.
There's no better thing than listening to someone talk about something that you love and they love it just as much and more. More than enthusiastic the entire time, takes time to go through as much details as possible and so much more. Pretty simple and sweet there. So thank you, Nano325 as well.
Nano, thank you so much. And so as I was saying, if you take the time to leave a rating and a review, put some words in there, and it's 5 stars, we will read it out on a future episode of the show. And a reminder that Spotify is starting to catch up with Apple Podcasts, and in some ways they've surpassed them. Most of our listeners listen on Spotify. And if that's one of you and you have the app, you can scroll up to the top of the app, when you have the list of all the episodes, and you go to the top where you see the name of the podcast and the description. And just underneath that on the top left, there's a little button there with the number of stars, and you can rate us. And if you give us a 5-star rating, we would super duper appreciate it, because that's going to help it recommend us to other people who might be looking for a Witcher podcast to listen to. So we'd really appreciate those ratings. And thank you to everyone who's already taken the time to do that as well. There's a number of you guys who have already rated us on there. So thank you to all of you guys for that. But also, one last time, thank you to our patrons. You guys are amazing. All 11 of you. Thank you so very much. All right, let's get on with the rest of the show, because we've got some things to discuss.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
So, Toasty, this episode covered a few different things. We've got the introduction of what is kind of the big bad of the season, right? And then we have also the introduction of the other Witchers. We have the Witcher family. We have Geralt's family. We have Kaer Morhen. We have some key characters, and we have a lot of things that happened in ways that a lot of people were not expecting. The people who are familiar with the books were probably in some ways thrown off guard by some of this stuff. And I know that for a fact, because I've been reading the forums and things, that some people were like, wait a minute, why did they do this? Or why did they do that? So I want to address some of that, but let's get into it piece by piece here. Let's go back to the first section where we're talking about the sorceresses and the visions and Baba Yaga.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Tom, but did you pick up on that whenever you first saw this episode?
Yeah, I caught that.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously I think because of this season, eventually we're gonna have to do an entirely different episode just on Baba Yaga at this point. So basically, for people that aren't familiar, Baba Yaga is kind of like I think Russian.
It's Eastern European, Russian,
European,
and Eastern European, I believe. Yeah.
Eastern European, like witch, sort of figure, spirit, mythological figure,
witchy, demonic kind of spirit.
Yeah. And one of her biggest identifying features is that she is depicted as having chicken feet, but she also lives in a house that walks on chicken feet.
Right.
Which this hut just kind of stands up with chicken feet and turns. And that was like the big thing for me. That was like, okay, this is basically Baba Yaga.
Yes.
Like they refer to her as the Deathless Mother. So they have kind of a different name for stuff. But I guarantee that this is like they pulled a lot of inspiration from Baba Yaga to use for the Deathless Mother.
Right. I'm sure a lot of people saw this episode and they saw the house stand up on those weird legs and they were like, what is this? This is getting super weird. What are they even doing here? That's what they're doing. They're making references to actual like mythology, actual like lore, real world lore, and connecting it into The Witcher. So that's going on with that. And then you also have the visions that they're having and the glitching of the visions And you even have the old woman kind of figure glitching in and out of some of those visions. Did you catch that, Toasty?
Yeah, so you definitely see that, and it's very it's like they're flashing in between images, which you can see kind of like the thing that got me, like, kind of reminded me of it, because as they, like, you saw the regular figure and then you saw all the other figures, but they weren't like just the other figures flashing between the other ones that weren't being prominently displayed to the person kind of showed up, kind of like Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, whenever they're fighting the Noon Wraiths. Or not the Noon Wraiths. I'm using Witcher term. The fighting the Wraiths,
the ring wraiths,
in like that round place, and Frodo puts the ring on, and he sees kind of like the ghostly,
the negative
versions of them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the visual effect I saw from it. I was like, okay, that looks a lot like those. But you're seeing like the images of that, and then you're seeing like this other thing, which we see at the end of Yennefer's vision, where she turns from the young Tisaya, I'm just going to call her young Tisaya because I'm pretty sure that's what that is, into this old lady who, by the way, also just kind of looks like an old Ciri.
There's some weird connections there, but
that's like the way that they casted things. There's definitely some very like similarities between appearances for things. It's like,
which could play into the intentions there, because and why don't we just dig into it, because I'm sure everyone's watched the whole season by this point. Spoiler alert. And if you don't want spoilers for the last episode of this season right now, just skip ahead like 30 seconds.
Yeah, we're definitely in spoiler territory.
We're in spoiler territory right now. So
turn off, go watch the rest of the season.
Go watch the rest of the season. So skip ahead 30 seconds. Here you go. And in episode 8, when Baba Yaga possesses Ciri, I think what we're seeing there is the intentionality of Baba Yaga in Ciri, and Ciri becoming Baba Yaga, the combining of the two. And so you would end up with an old Ciri that's been, corrupted and aged by this evil spirit. So there might be some casting in there and that's cool. Like you get these echoes of some of the intentionality. I think that's a really, really cool thing. So I think all of that was actually very cool. It was vague enough to be like, what is going on here?
It is a little hard to follow. Like I feel like you definitely need to watch this, at least this part. Like if you're not someone that's going to go back and watch a whole entire episode again, like at least this part, you probably have to watch a couple of times to kind of pick up on everything that they're throwing at you. I know I definitely had to. So
right. So but the vagueness and the mystery is good. It's not too on the nose, and there's definitely alluding to the fact that whatever this malevolent spirit witch thing is, it thrives on the suffering of other people, and not just like short-term suffering, like long-term big suffering, like the suffering of masses of people, and the terrible suffering of Yennefer over like the rest of her life. Like it's not going to let her off easy, like these kinds of things. And that is a big thing, that this is a malevolent spirit that is just absolutely absorbing all of that negativity.
So you know what I thought this was? So I definitely made a wrong guess whenever I first watched this, which when I first watched this, I realized, like, because I also kind of fell asleep in it because I was watching like immediately after I got off work. I was very tired and my couch is very comfortable. But I thought that this was like the manifestation of fire. So in the books, there is a part where Ciri kind of plays with fire magic. After she's been told not to play with fire magic, she does it anyways because she can't access any of the other elements. All she has is fire, and she like needs something at that moment. And like fire talks back to her. Like it communicates with her. So I thought that this was maybe like the spirit of fire or something, because like she lost her magic because she used like fire consumes things. So fire consumed her magic. And it was just like tantalizing her, like I have, or use me again or something, like kind to like corrupt her idea of magic or something.
The personification.
Completely wrong
of magic.
Just, know, Baba Yaga trying to corrupt her, which is fine too. But
Interesting. Okay. But yeah, so for that part of it, I thought for the most part it was good. Like it was interesting. We were kind of left with Yennefer running through the woods, trying to cast portals and things like that, but no significant plot holes that I really felt were issues. The acting was good. The cinematography was interesting. The going to the temple and these like ancient inscriptions in the temple, and these like the elves desperately trying to latch onto anything that's going to give them a sense of relevancy and hope for the future. Like all of that played really well, at least up until this point in the story. I think all of that was good. So then we've got the Witchers. The big rub here for a lot of people was why'd they do Eskel so dirty? why was he such a jerk? And why did they do him so dirty? And and the response on the internet has been like, that sucks. Why'd they just have to kill him? He doesn't die in the books, for anybody who's wondering. And the showrunner, she addressed it, and she's like, well, we want to throw some curveballs. We don't want everybody to know what's going to happen. And so we thought it would make sense to if one of the characters had to die, that we would throw this in. And another spoiler, there isn't any, weird mutant Leshen that shows up, or Leshy, that turns a Witcher into a Leshy. That doesn't happen in the books. But they wanted to do some things. They wanted to show that like Kaer Morhen is not impregnable. Like these bad things can happen to the Witchers. They're going to have to be very careful with taking care of Ciri, and the Witchers themselves bad things can happen to them. Like they're going to have to watch out. Right. But the response that I saw to that response was also generally negative. People were like, yeah, but you didn't actually build up any love for him either before you offed him. Right. Like from the beginning, he shows up and he's kind of a jerk, which doesn't do him any favors. Like, why not have him show up initially, and maybe he's the one who stands up for Ciri when the others are treating her kind of rough. And then next thing, he disappears to go off on a hunt, and he comes back and now he's acting like a jerk because he's been stabbed by a Leshy, and then he goes through everything. So at least we feel bad for him when he dies. Like the show didn't do that, which would have been kind of a nice, hey, at least they built that in, What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just Eskel's just not like that at all. In any other representation of him. So like the books don't really show too much about the other Witchers or whatever. Like we got a little bit.
I mean, Lambert's more of a jerk in general than Eskel.
Yeah, Lambert's the jerk, which I think as far as like his jerk level was pretty decent for the season. Like I think he was like kind of where he was supposed to be. He's
kind of a dim-witted kind of jerky kind of dude. And there's multiple times in the season where he has to apologize. And he's like, what? I was just joking, and they all kind of look at him like, Lambert.
Yeah. But yeah, so like one, just like Eskel's attitude just isn't what he's portrayed as in anything that like shows him. And then, they definitely don't help you like him at all.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, so like whenever they kill him, and of course, I wasn't expecting it, but whenever they did it, I was kind of like, all right. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm fine with this. I kind of want him to die because
he shows up as a jerk, and I think it would have played better. And okay, so here's my whole theory on the thing is, and this goes back to, let me take a step back and let's zoom out a little bit. When it comes to traditional TV shows, a traditional TV show on a network makes more money with more episodes because they get to run more ads. Mm-hmm. Because when CSI has 24 episodes in a season, that means that they've got 24 episodes they can run ads for. and they can run a lot of ads across 24 episodes. But when Netflix makes a show, or HBO or Hulu or whoever makes a show, they make money from subscriptions, not necessarily from ads. So it benefits them to actually make less episodes. So if they're going to put several $1 million into doing a show like The Witcher, then if they have the option of doing a 10 episode season or an 8 episode season, they're always going to side with the less number of episodes in a season because it saves them money. They make more money per episode. Because it doesn't matter if you find out that the season is only 8 episodes rather than 10, you're still subscribing because you're going to still want to watch The Witcher. Just because there's 2 less episodes doesn't mean you're not going to watch, right? So that means that the showrunners and the writers have to fit in as much as they possibly can into the story, into as many episodes as the money makers, the people running the money are going to give them. And they're going to do everything they can to negotiate as much as they can to get the number of episodes they think they need. But at the end of the day,
this is basically a 10 episode season. Like, it is 8 episodes, but normally when we're looking at like a show, we're looking at about 45 minutes because of like whenever they run it on TV with commercials and stuff, it comes out to it sits in that hour window. And the all of these episodes were an hour or like a little bit over an hour. So you're getting like an extra 15 minutes on every single episode.
But regardless of how the math actually works, you still only get X amount of time, right? So if the showrunners and the writers say, hey, we need 12, and the money people say, I can give you 8, and they negotiate 10, then that means that the writers still didn't get as much as they were planning to get. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. When Lord of the Rings was originally going to be made into movies, they the people with the money wanted to do it in 2 films. Like, they almost released the Lord of the Rings in 2 films. And then they were able to actually get it. And they were smart. They actually leaked the script. Peter Jackson leaked the script onto a popular website at the time in like 1998 or something like this. And it got so much pushback from the public that they were able to convince the publisher, whoever it was, that it needed to be three movies. Because
the public, hell would the extended versions would have worked with this?
Yeah, the extended versions never would have worked. But they knew,
you're sitting on like 3 hours of a movie.
Right. So by the time they actually got into the production of the movie, they were able to do what they needed to do because they had the budget to do it, because they negotiated well. But when it comes to something like The Witcher, my theory is many of the problems we got in this season are due to the season being shorter than the writers would have liked. And so they had to squish stuff in. So when it comes to a story like Eskel's story, whereas if we had an extra episode where we would have gotten to meet the Witchers, we would have gotten to meet Eskel. Eskel was nice dude. He was somebody that we would have bonded with. We would have gotten to know him. He leaves on a journey. He comes back and he's totally different for some reason. We don't know why. And it's because there's a thing inside him that's corrupting him and it's turned him into a total jerk, which would make sense, right? That's why he's acting like a jerk. That's why he's bringing prostitutes to the place. Like, why would he even do that? That doesn't make sense. It's not his character. Like that, it would make sense if we're missing an episode. A lot of this stuff makes sense as well. Like if you think about some of the other like holes later on in the series, like some of the travel that's like just glazed over later on in the series. There's places where like the characters just get on a horse. Like the worst one is like, I don't know, what is it, episode 7 or 8, where like Yen is yelling at Geralt and they leave like Sintra and then they pull into Kaer Morhen and she's still yelling at him. I mean, they would have traveled for weeks with her yelling at him by horseback in order to make that distance. It doesn't make any sense, right? And of course, that was just kind of written in. That was almost like a Game of Thrones kind of like, oof, really? Like, did they just fly by dragon for that distance and then get back on the horse? Like, what happened? Like there's no portal there. But imagine a story that had been given 2 extra full episodes to actually fill out everything a little bit more. And you could have fixed that stuff a lot more easily. These problems.
What do you think if they
like
had
there's just not enough?
done kind of the reverse, because they started to do this, but they didn't like stay in it too long. Or the episode 3, we get Geralt kind of having flashbacks of Eskel.
Mm-hmm.
What if they had put that in? Like, what if they had those in every episode for the rest of the season after that? Like every episode he deals with some sort of flashback where he has like a good memory, and we get to see the memory, and like it's Eskel as like a genuinely good dude, and like, you know, or some sort of like brother bonding moment with Geralt or something.
Yeah, well, I feel like that needed to happen before we saw negative Eskel. We needed to build a positive version of him first in our minds before that was broken by the negative version of him. Because we needed to feel as confused as the rest of the Witchers, and Geralt in particular, to feel like, what's going on with him? Why is he like this? In that moment, our first impression of him shouldn't have been, well, he's just a jerk anyway, because that meant that like anytime we saw him as being nice, we would have been like, what's with him? Why is he nice now? Like, our first impression should be the standard, and anything after that should break that first impression. So it needed to flip the other way. But like, these aren't things that writers don't know. Like, this is my point, is that like, people who write shows like The Witcher, it's not like they don't know these things. They do. Like, you don't get these kinds of jobs without knowing these things. Usually when this stuff shows up in a show like this, it's because something got cut. It's because there was something even more important that needed to fit in, that they had to make a call. It was like a rock in a hard place. It's rare that this stuff just slips past them, or past the editors, or past the showrunner, and just like, they're just like, yeah, screw it, it's fine. You know, like, that's not common. It's not like they don't want the show to be good. They do. I have a feeling it was just a lack of resources or time, or most likely episodes, so that they like, maybe they wrote it around 10 episodes and then they had to shorten it all up. I wouldn't be surprised. And a lot of times they can't complain about these things because it's in their freaking contract. They can't say like, well, we had a better script, but we had to throw it out. And I just froze. I look awesome.
Oh, you're okay. I was wondering. I was like, my internet's real weird. Tom's making kissy faces at me. like, I don't know. It's a little odd.
Maybe I should just leave my video like this.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, there you go. It's fixed now.
But anyway, that's my theory on it. And I know some people are just going to be like, no, that's still not good enough. They could have done better. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that work on these things, and I think most of them don't. They're smart enough, and they know when the product isn't as good as they want it to be, and they can't just come out afterwards and say, sorry guys, we wish you could have done better, because they can't. They have to stand by it because the marketing says they do. And that's just kind of how it goes. But I hope that the pushback publicly means that maybe, Netflix knows that they got lots of people to watch. They know that there's a lot of people out there who are saying, like, we love The Witcher. We want it to be, we don't want these kinds of problems to show up. Maybe they give them a few extra episodes next season, or maybe they listen to the writers when the writers say like, hey, we need a budget in order to make sure that this happens this way.
I mean, we saw how much the budget increased from season 1 to season 2.
Right. And it went towards special effects and outfits and location filming and like all sorts of cool stuff. But now maybe balance that around writing a little bit more and number of episodes, and, redistribute it a little bit, because like people will notice when the budget gets placed in certain ways. So I think it's just a balance thing, really, when it comes down to it. That's my theory on all that stuff. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm not the be all end all opinion on this. Like, maybe there's some other thoughts on this as well. And just because I feel like they did Escroll kind of crappy in this doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the episode. So, and this goes back to what I was saying last episode. Don't take one critique and, assume that I mean more than that, right? Like, I think, and let's move into that section of this. Like, what do you think about the overall episode? How do you feel about, in general, how did this episode, how did it land for you?
I think I think as far as some of like the Kaer Morhen stuff, I think was kind of the lesser part of the episode. For me personally, I do like seeing the developing relationship between Geralt and Ciri, which and then the way the episode ends with them, I think like drives up, like as far as scoring goes, like an entire point for me personally. But I think that more of it is to show you the Yennefer, Fringilla, Francesca side of things. Like I think the sorceresses have the more impactful because it's moving, like the continent is moving forward with things. Like while the Witchers are going home for the winter and coming to a standstill on the path for themselves, at least for a time, this is showing like, well, the rest of the continent is pushing into a very intense kind of situation now because the war is escalating at this point, and the elves are now getting entirely roped in with things, and we're seeing, a significant threat. We're introduced kind of to the big bad. Yeah. Right. So overall, I enjoyed it. I think it was good. I don't think it was good as episode 1 personally, but I think it's still one of the stronger episodes of the season.
Okay. How'd you feel about the fight sequence with the Eskel Leshy?
It was cool. I liked seeing kind of some of the, I guess the camera work that they went with on it. I thought was very interesting. Like, I can't imagine how difficult that rolling over the table shot could have been.
They've done that like
manage
2 or 3 times in the season. They do it. One of those, like he rolls over the table and they roll the camera with him.
I can't imagine that's easy at all. I'm sure that takes like so many takes in order to do that.
Yeah. Like, okay, roll over the table again. All right. Do it again. Yeah. All right. Do it again. 2 hours later. So, guys, can I stop rolling?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about it was getting to see Vesemir and Geralt kind of fight together, like back to back, dealing with the threat, and then, how I think synchronized they are as far as a unit goes, which doesn't happen again this season, which kind of sucks. At least for here, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, there's a little bit of it in the finale with them kind of like working together.
Yeah, so
there's a little bit of it. Yeah,
and then of course the Igni, we get to see kind of the final sign usage here because we've seen the other ones. So
lighting up the sword. This is the first time we get to see that.
It was a cool use of it rather than just like blasting fire, but like, which we still see him kind of do that, but like here where it's like specifically like heating the blade. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So the use of signs as tools rather than just for the effect of the sign itself is cool. Like it would make sense. Like if you've lived with these, I mean, they're tools, like with these magical tools at your disposal for as many years as they have, you'd come with all sorts of creative ways of, making them do things for you. So I think that's really cool. It wasn't one of my favorite fight scenes. It was okay. It was okay. The Eskel Leshy looked okay.
I think it's probably I'm trying to think, maybe one of the weakest ones this season, like other than like the people fights, except for like I think the Mitchell brothers was better. But like as far as like Geralt just slaughtering a bunch of Nilfgaardians was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, I think that some of the people fights are some of the best ones. But the vines, like him, like having to deal with vines coming up on him and like that kind of stuff is cool. But yeah, overall, it was an okay episode. Seeing them introducing Ciri to the Witchers, I think is interesting and cool, and that interaction, because it gives you the beginning of like what's going to happen with that. How are they going to accept her? Like all of that beginning of the tension was cool, and then going back to the sorceresses and the dynamic between them and some of the set pieces. The temple, the woods, the creepy hut. And then the Baba Yaga stuff. I think that some of those scenes were actually really cool, and creepy and unique in their own ways, which I love when the series gets really creepy and dark and mysterious. So that stuff I liked a lot. So overall, we're doing what, 10 leshies?
Yeah, we're doing out of 10. Yeah.
Is that what we're still doing leshies? Is that what we're doing?
Leshy hands.
Leshy hands. That's what it was.
Leshy
Okay.
hands.
Leshy hands.
Which is very fitting for this episode.
All right.
So what's your rating for this one, Tom?
I think this one gets like I don't know. Overall, it's like a 7. It's like a 7.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fair enough. I think, it's at like 7.58 for me. Like it's about the same. It's specifically for the final kind of scene between Geralt and Ciri. That's like the one that really, because it kind of, I think that scene, while important for everyone else, I think is very, I feel like they targeted like the gamers a lot with it, because it feels very much like Witcher 3, how Geralt's would be with Ciri, like if you were, going for like the good ending. And I definitely felt that, like him no longer trying to like protect and coddle her, but instead letting her like begin that path to like just helping her learn how to defend herself. That one, I think it really resonated, and that's kind of where the high point comes for me.
Yeah, I agree. The final scene was good. That was good too. Yeah. All right. So like 7, 8 in that range.
Yeah, about that mark. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So next week we will be back with episode 3. And until then, I would love to hear your impressions of episode 2. I want to know what you're going to rate it. And, we haven't had too many people tell us their ratings on the Discord, but I would love to get a little string on the Discord going in the Witcher Lorecast channel of just what you guys would rate the episode. So chime in there. Let us know what your ratings. Ben of Temeria in chat says 8 out of 10. This is an 8
for Ben. 10. Okay. Yeah. About the same for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to hear differences of opinion too. Like if you absolutely love this episode for some reason, or you feel like this was just the worst one in the season, like let us know. Yeah, I want to know what makes you love the show, or what made this just not work for you. Just let us know. And if you share some stuff in the Discord, and it really, you got some really good reasoning in there, then we might read it out on a future episode. So let us know your thoughts. Toast, do you have anything else going on you want to share before we go?
Just follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast. Thanks for all the Twitter follows we've been getting recently. That's cool.
That's cool, guys.
I'm really good at words. Yeah, that's about it for me. I don't really got anything going on right now. The Avatar podcast, they announced it, so I can actually say the Avatar podcast has been put on hold for right now while we kind of wait for the actual like materials to come out, which apparently is going to be a while before we see those. So
I gotcha.
Yep. Indefinite suspension for now.
All right. Well, let us know when that kicks back up.
Will do.
Jaxus in chat says I'd give it around a 7, and Villain Behind Glasses says 7 out of 10 Escals.
Escals?
Yeah. And the dogs barking behind me say it's a clear 72, but they don't know how to do math. So because
I think they meant 7.2, maybe. I don't know.
It sounds like 72 when they bark. But dogs don't do math. So
that's fair.
There we go. I've got all the stuff I've got going on regularly over on robotsradio.net. So if you're into any of the other games in the realm of role playing, things like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Cyberpunk, all of that stuff. In fact, we've got the 100th episode of the Cyberpunk Lorecast coming up next week, and I've got some very, very cool guests joining me. That'll be on Tuesday.
I gotta wash it, but I got my shirt in, so
nice.
So it's like my little China shirt.
Nice. Yeah,
cool.
He's one of our patrons. Some of our patrons are getting shirts designed around each of the regions of Night City. So, so those are cool. And so that stuff's going on. So if you want to check out any other podcasts on the network, and then there's also on the new revised website that came out a few weeks ago, there's a live stream section that has a calendar for all the different nights of the week and all the different streams that are happening. So Monday night is, of course, the Witcher Lorecast. And then Tuesday night is Skyrim with my mom, which is a new series that I am officially doing now, where I play Skyrim with my mom. And it's amazing because she's an older woman who's never played a role-playing game ever. And she makes all the decisions, and I push the buttons, and she reacts, and it's hilarious. So that's what we've got going on. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. Every night of the week, come hang out. Robots Radio on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. And I'd love to. Yeah, she's a very lovely woman. Thank you, Rob the Princess. But yeah, we'll be doing that again tomorrow night. So come back and hang out with us for that. But that's what we got for tonight, and we'll see you guys next week. And until then,
stay safe on the path.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody. Later. Thanks for tuning into the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.